Hello and welcome to my channel. Today is Monday, so that means we're doing true crime tales. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a black cat today. So with that being said, let's just jump right into it. We have that trigger warning. Lots of things happened in this one. Mostly to his own family members. I mean, they were pretty much all his own family members, but still, graphic content. Gotta have a content warning. That being said, let's go to it. This one is about Gayno Gilbert Smith, who was an American mass murderer and serial killer who killed 6 of his family members in Iowa between 1961 and 1962. Before the murders, Smith had been living in Denver, but due to problems there and had to come to Martinsburg, Iowa to live with his stepmother. When he had problems with her as well, he moved to the home of his uncle Andrew. On May 27, 1962, Smith murdered Andrew Macbeth, 51, and Dora Macbeth, 41, and their 3 children, Amos and Anna Macbeth, 19. So I'm assuming since they're the same age and their siblings, they're probably twins. And Donna Jean Kellogg, 18. Smith, then 24, a nephew of the elder Macbeths, confessed to the crime. He also confessed to having murdered his stepmother, Juanita Smith, who had been missing for several months in 1961. The Macbeth family lived in rural Iowa, about 4 miles north of Martinsburg, and Gayno Smith had been living with them at the time. Another daughter, Patsy Lou 15, was wounded by Smith but escaped in the night and ran to nearby farm for help. Kellogg's 6-month-old baby, Perry, was in the crib and left unharmed. On the night of the murders, the Macbeth children, Amos, Anna, and Donna Jean, had driven to Brighton, Iowa for a dance. And Donna Jean, as was her custom, had left her infant in the care of her parents. Smith remained at the dance a short time, then disappeared until midnight, according to court records. He came back to pick up the group after the dance ended. Thunder, lightning, and heavy rain began as the 5 went to a truck stop for food. When they returned to their farmhouse, the lights were out. The children found flashlights and made their way around the house to investigate. Donna and Amos found the murdered bodies of their parents in the garage where they'd been dragged. They tried to call for help but discovered the lines had been cut. Suddenly, Smith appeared before them with a flashlight and a gun. He shot Amos in the face, then Donna. He shot Patsy in the shoulder. Though badly wounded, Amos pleaded for his life but was shot again. Patsy escaped to another room where she found her older sister Anna already dead. Smith chased her to a ditch in the countryside. She played cat and mouse through the ditches, crawling and crouching to escape his roving flashlight through the early morning hours. She finally reached a nearby farmhouse where she called her uncle Furman Macbeth. Sorry, face paint always ages, and I try not to get taken off. Smith went into hiding but was found 4 days later in a barn near Lake Wacapello. After being arrested, he confessed both to the Macbeth murders in Martinsburg and also the murder of his stepmother, Juanita Smith, the previous October in Hendrick, Iowa. At the time, Iowa still had capital punishment and prosecutors wanted Smith to be hanged. Facing an almost certain death sentence if the case went to trial, Smith pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder and 5 counts of first-degree murder, leaving his fate up to the judge. Arguing for a death sentence, prosecutors said Smith had, quote, attempted to exterminate an entire family, end quote. I mean, he really did. The only one that lived out of the people that were in that house that night was the baby. A psychiatric evaluation of Smith concluded that he was sane. His lawyers did not call any witnesses and did not contest that Smith was sane, and the crimes were premeditated, choosing instead to plead with Judge C.R. Carson for mercy. Why? He didn't give any mercy to any of the other people he killed. Like, I mean, like, I understand that as lawyers, like, that's their job, but, like, I have always had this, like, question about, like, do the like, defense attorneys, do they ever feel guilty, you know, like, for defending these people? Because, I mean, I get that's their job and they, like, signed up for that by being a defense attorney, but, like, if you know someone's guilty, like they did, and you know somebody actually did, like, do you feel bad trying to get them off for that? Like, I would love a defense attorney's perspective on cases like this. I've always wondered that. Like, do you feel guilty? Like, Ultimately, Carson spared his life. After finding him guilty of 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder, he instead sentenced Smith to 6 life terms at hard labor. The sentences were ordered to run consecutively to ensure that he would spend the rest of his natural life in prison. Infant Perry was adopted by his uncle Furman, Andrew Macbeth's brother, and raised with Furman's own 9 biological children. Perry, the child in the crib, has spoken about the problems he faced growing up. Quote, all the way through school I was a bully because I wanted people to hurt as bad as I did. I hated everything and everybody. I'm sorry about that now. When I see those people today, I try to tell them that, but they just don't understand. End quote. And I can see how they would understand. Being that I was the victim of bullying myself in like my school years, I can see why they would struggle to understand why you would do that. But they may also be struggling because they don't understand, like, his whole family was murdered. And, like, yeah, he technically witnessed it, but he was a baby, so he doesn't really remember it. But still, his entire family was murdered, and he was the sole survivor. There's survivor's guilt, I'm sure, tied into that. And, you know, the fact that he lost his mom. These aren't things that just kind of, you know, disappear into the night. And, you know, I'm sure the uncle did not hide this information from him. I'm sure there's newspaper articles he could find. I'm sure there's stories and all sorts of stuff, and that's not really, I don't think, something anybody can understand unless they've been through it themselves. Perry did graduate from Pekin Community High School. In 1971, Smith filed an unsuccessful motion for a new trial. He was interviewed in prison in 1974 by the Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier. Smith had accepted the fact that he would die in prison. He said he was excited to get an education in prison. He started off by working through a lengthy series. At the time of the article, Smith was more than halfway to a college degree. I had 68 quarter hours in commercial cooking and have completed 66 quarter hours in academic courses so far. He said he performed well in both subjects, having a 3.75 GPA in the cooking program and a 3.3 GPA in academics. Smith said he hoped to work with juvenile delinquents and help other young people with his newfound knowledge. And I'm not excusing what he did. I will never excuse what a serial killer did because there is no excuse. But sometimes it is nice, I guess, to hear that they tried to turn their lives around. But like I said, there's no excuse for what he did. He killed people, and nothing he can say or do is going to bring those people back. So Smith also spoke about making changes to the prison system. I'd like to go to Des Moines and speak to the legislature, he said. I'd like to talk to them about this institution itself, about some of their laws and some of their rehabilitation. All prison systems are inhumane. You take a man from society who fails when he's in an abnormal situation, put him in one of those places, it's an abnormal situation here in itself. Then you say to the man, rehabilitate yourself. You don't send a person on the street to a mental hospital and say, make yourself well. There's nothing in here to change you. You can let prison society destroy you, or you can get some education and change yourself. End quote. Gayno Smith died from heart problems on May 16, 2005. He had been transferred to a hospital shortly before his death. Smith's body was cremated and buried in Mount Zion Cemetery next to the plot of his mother. After hearing of Smith's death, Perry said he wished he'd been hanged. I'm glad he's dead, he said. It was the first day of my life. I hope he burns in hell forever. And that's the story of Gayno Smith, who clearly did not care about anybody but himself. Anyway, it was a short one today. I'm sorry, but like doing this, like, you know, most notable case from each state. Sometimes you get ones that are really long, sometimes you get ones that are really short. And if you've noticed, I have skipped over some states. Like Kansas was BTK. Well, I've already done a segment on BTK. We had Gacy in there. I've already done a segment on Gacy. We had Dahmer in there. I've already done a segment on Dahmer. You just gotta search for them. I think these were back when I was still doing makeup with the talking part, but that got away from me. So now we just film it after the makeup's done. But, so, like, they're back in there. I could probably find them and link them in this video if you guys really want me to, or the next video if you really want me to. But I have done segments on BTK, Dahmer, Bundy, Gacy, Ramirez, and the Golden State Killer. I think it was D'Angelo, if I'm saying that correctly. And so I've done segments on all those. So that's the only reason why those states got skipped. It wasn't because I didn't want to do them. It was because I've already done them. So as always, for me, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others and make good choices. And I'll see you all on Wednesday. Bye.